Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 20 of Hinterland's Oneshot. It is December 15th, and it's been forever since we've done an episode. I'm here with my wife and co-host, who is playing video games, so if you hear a bunch of clicky sounds, that's her controller. I don't think she's interested in turning it off during our podcast.
I would, except that it's not the sort of game that pauses. I started playing it while you were getting the baby to sleep, and I've got the other baby nursing, and now I've been chasing a stupid animal for an hour across the stupid map, and I don't know what'll happen if I quit it. I don't know if it'll reset. Anyway, you guys didn't need to know that.
Yeah, it's a silly hunting game we've gotten obsessed with, but anyway, thankfully, it's a very quiet game. All you'll hear is clicking controllers, not, video game stuff.
And it doesn't take any brain power.
Right. So anyway, we've been absent because we have lives and we're busy, and we haven't really thought of any terribly good topics recently. So, I recently got interested in. I'm sorry, what's on the screen is distracting. An interesting topic. I think it's interesting and weird because I'm not Catholic. So there's our introduction. What do you think about Catholicism?
I think it's the modern day version of the Pharisees.
Yeah, that's just about perfect. I don't know if I've heard you say that.
I'm pretty sure we talked about that.
Did we?
Yeah, a month ago when we first said we were going to talk about this. And I don't know if it's what spurred you on this topic or not, but I've been getting irritated recently with what seems to me to be a resurgence in young people of interest in Catholicism, particularly among people who did not grow up with Christianity or any sort of religion.
Yeah, it's weird. Catholicism has an interesting attraction, and I've never understood it because I kind of grew up with a bit of a free-form Christianity. That's a weird way to describe it, but I haven't studied all the different denominations and theologies closely enough, their doctrinal statements, to be able to put myself in whatever box is out there. But, I believe the Holy Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament, with no Maccabees or those extra, what I consider extra biblical writings. Oh man, my phone's not on silent. Pardon me. I just believe the Bible. I believe everything it says, and I attempt to believe it as literally as possible. And yes, that means the earth was made in 7 days. It's only about 6 to 10,000 years old. Things of that nature, because you can extrapolate the age. Anyway, that's not our topic. Yeah, I can't really put my faith in a box by labeling it. But Catholicism certainly does, and they've got it down to this crazy exact science. And a lot of what they believe seems to... Now, there's apologists out there who can point to all the scriptures to back up everything they say doctrinally. But there seems to be some really goofy doctrinal stuff in their belief system that it just seems anti the vision of Jesus. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't think that young people being attracted to Catholicism is necessarily a new phenomenon. Maybe we're just noticing it now, but I always like to bring up the case of G.K. Chesterton, one of my favorite old school authors, wrote in 1910. He's been dead a long time. He started out as Anglican Church of England Christian, and towards later in life, he changed to Catholicism, and I never understood why, because the dude is an apologist. He knew the Bible well, through and through, back to front, and he ended up changing to Catholicism, and I find that just weird.
That's not getting picked up by the mic, is it?
Maybe.
Oh, I thought you were going to turn it down. Yeah, I don't know. That's something I do want to look into. Like I said, I wanted to read that book we have on the shelf on... or you said it's on the Kindle?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, I do want to be better informed because we have childhood friends, we being my family, who decided to become Catholic even though the dad had become Protestant when he married the mother of our friends. They decided to become Catholic because the mother decided she wanted to become Catholic after a family tragedy. So, I'd like to be better informed in order to discuss it with people, but I don't think I would ever change my mind because there's just so much that when I find out about Catholicism here and there, it just does not sit right with me, does not sit right with what I know about the Bible. And
yeah, there's some real strangeness there. And one of the particular ones that I really wanted to talk about, I ended up doing some research while I was on a work trip and writing some notes, which I promptly left in another town, probably in my work truck. But I did a little research on relics because I thought, well, what the heck are they? Like, we don't have anything to do with relics, and it's such a strange thing. And as far as I can tell, at least before I did some research, and now even afterwards, it sure seems like a death worship type of thing. I know that if there's Catholics listening to our podcast, they're gonna get all up in arms, and it's not a death worship thing. You just venerate. It's just veneration. Yeah, but if you, well, anyway, we'll get into that discussion. So you know anything about relics?
No, I have heard of a few over the years. Off the top of my head, you remember Adventures in Odyssey had an episode on this cloth that they thought was Jesus' burial cloth or something? Or...
Right. Was it about the Shroud of Turin? Because that's the famous one.
Yeah, I don't think they called it that, but I think it was supposed to,
be like an analog.
Yeah. And it just... I don't doubt that there are certain things like that in existence, but I don't believe that they have any, in layman's terms, magical properties, because God was a man. He was a man until he died on the cross for us.
Right. And as far as the Bible is concerned, Jesus was the only sinless man. The only man that you could actually consider holy.
Mm-hmm.
In as far as I can understand it, you should never consider any man holy. Even a pastor or the Pope, they're not without sin. They're sinful men.
Well, and clearly, one can see from what's going on in the Catholic Church right now.
Right. It's actually a lot more specific than you would think. So I wrote some notes, and I did do this research already, so I'm a little bit versed on it, but again, the notes disappeared, so I wrote some new notes. So there's, in Catholicism, now, other religions have relics as well. I didn't look into those. I'm thinking about Catholicism specifically. So they have 3 classes of relics that they've developed a system of classifying them, right? Mm-hmm. So, first class relic is anything that is specifically associated with Jesus. We're talking about the what they call the true cross. So, a lot of churches claim they have a chunk of the cross that Jesus hung on, mm-hmm. right? And there's a bunch of different churches that claim that they have nails, like actual nails that went through Jesus' body. The Shroud of Turin, we've already mentioned, is a burial cloth that when you look at it with the right filters on a camera, it's there, plain to see with your eye, but you can bring the colors out, the contrast out with cameras. Mm-hmm. You can see this face and the shape of the body, and they think it was the burial cloth of Jesus. So that's first class relic A, right? has to do with Jesus. Very, very closely associated with Jesus. Piece of his manger, right? They claim they have the manger that Jesus was placed in after he was born, right?
That's a bit goofy.
Well, they say they have the entire manger. It's in St. Peter's Basilica in Rome.
But how do they know? Because it's not like somebody said, "Oh, Jesus was born. Let's pack up the manger and, store it away somewhere."
Right, and that's
Market.
That's part of my argument against a lot of this, especially the stuff associated with Jesus. Now, clearly, they can trace back historically and documented. They can trace back items that. Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves. I'll get to that. So, first class relic A has to do with Jesus. They don't have Jesus' body. He took off, right? First class relic B, they're kind of split in two, the first class relics, is a piece of someone declared a saint. Right? So that's a piece of bone, a piece of hair, like a part of the physical body of a saint.
Isn't there a claim that they have like Peter's finger bones or something?
Right.
That's super gross.
Right, exactly. Probably more than that. And I didn't look up specific relics, but anybody who has been declared a saint, their whole body automatically becomes a relic. Right? And in Catholicism, they venerate the saints. They venerate the relics. Right? And veneration is, as far as I can tell, it's really akin to worship. Now, the apologists say that no, veneration is just an honor placed upon this person because they attained more holiness and closeness to God the Creator than other men, and therefore we're actually worshiping the Creator through veneration, right? Because worship is not for man, it's only for God. So we venerate the saints and thereby are worshiping God through them. And they believe that they're intercessors. Like, you can pray to the saints in heaven and they'll take your plea to God, right?
Like, God's what? Too busy twiddling his thumbs?
Right, exactly. And that's one of the big problems I have. I have many problems with Catholic theologies and dogmas, but that's one of them. So anyway, veneration, right? Which means, like, they have a glass case at some fancy cathedral somewhere and has a finger bone in it that belonged to, Thomas Aquinas or some famous saint of the old Catholic Church. There's a finger bone or a piece of hair or something, and you take your cross and you kiss it, and you venerate it. You say a prayer. You ask that saint to intercede to God to heal your family or whatever. Like, it just seems a little odd that you're placing such high honor on a mortal man who was sinful. He's guaranteed to be a sinful man. He's not perfect. He's not God. No, he's not Jesus. No one has attained that. Even Mary was sinful. And I know a lot of Catholic people will just freak out at hearing that, but she was. The Bible says nothing about her being sinless. So anyway, again, getting ahead of myself. So, second class relics are, let me refer to my notes real quick. 3 classes relics are items that saints have owned or touched. Mm-hmm. Not just touched, because that would be like a ton of stuff, but like, say they had a Bible, a personal Bible, and it belonged to a saint, right? That would be a second class relic. And people venerate the saints through these things, right? So, one of the podcasts I listened to do some research, I listened to 2, and they were both by Catholics who were all totally on board with this whole dogmatic theological ideal. They said that sometimes the Pope will, like, wear many hats. He'll choose a day and he'll wear like 50 or 60 hats. He'll put them on for like a minute, take them off, put one on for like a minute. He'll just recycle hats over and over, and all those hats become second class relics. Right? They're just like automatically these objects that you can that you can utilize to, like, venerate the Pope after he's dead, because he's not a saint until he dies, right? You can't be a saint until you're dead.
You sure that's a real thing?
Absolutely.
Sounds like somebody's just making crap up.
Absolutely. Yeah. These were, one of the people on the podcast I was listening to was like a bishop or whatever of some diocese, right? It makes sense to me that they would take it that far. Like, these are the rules that our papal overlords have put in place. The rule is, if the saint has owned this thing for more than a minute or whatever, because they break it down to that precise of a number. Mm-hmm. There's probably a number of seconds he can own a thing before it becomes a second-class relic, because they do that. Like, they get so legalistic in the way they believe so often that I'm sure it's written down how long he has to own something before it becomes a second-class relic. And then after Pope whatever dies, all that stuff becomes relics, and you get to, have this, like, sense of pride in your heart that you have a relic in your house and build a little shrine around it and whatnot.
You think if Pope Francis went to California and used a paper straw, it wouldn't automatically become a venerated thing as it's melting?
If he owned it, then it probably would. Yeah. Somebody would...
Just kind of spitwad?
Yeah, put it in a glass case on their shelf and take their... make the sign of the cross over their heart or whatever they do. And
no, I do think we're being a little mean.
I don't think we are. I think that's what people do. So in this podcast, it was a bunch of Catholic people, like people who they were all happy about this. They thought it was a really cool thing to do. Like, there's groups of, like, traveling relics. They'll, like, come through town with, like, a piece of bone from some saint that you've heard about in your studies, your Catholic studies. They'll travel around the nation with this big van that has relics in it, and people will, like, come to see the relic. They'll make a special trip. They'll take off time from work to come see this relic. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's a weird mentality when you can just pray. God's there. Jesus he listens when you pray. Who cares about these bones of old people? So, anyway, third class relic is any object that has touched a first or second class relic. And this includes the tomb thereof. So, if you go to a tomb or a shrine that was built over the bones of some famous saint, and you have your rosary, for instance, your rosary beads, and you touch it to the tomb, that becomes a third-class relic.
That seems unlikely.
I see on your face that you think this is not true, but it is.
I feel like somebody must have made some of this up and be trolling.
No, this is a thing. This is straight up a thing. And there's these people who make long pilgrimages.
You need to slow down a little bit. You're kind of...
Sorry. With a specific object to make it into a third-class relic of so-and-so saint and so-and-so saint. Like, it's a big deal. Those traveling reliquaries, I guess they call them, people will bring their rosaries and touch them. That's why they go. They make these pilgrimages to make their rosary into another third-class relic, so they can venerate the saints and ask for them to intercede or whatever. It's weird. It's this weird, like, it's just a weird mentality as far as I can see.
Well, I think we should probably pause and say that we're not suggesting that every single person who claims to be Catholic is not saved.
No, certainly not. I believe there's plenty of people who are saved in Catholicism, but I do believe that Catholicism is roth. It's roth? Is that how you say that? Roth? Anyway, it's filled to the brim with this legalistic mentality.
Roth is another way to say wrath.
Yeah, okay. Well, I said it wrong.
I'm not sure what you're talking about then.
Anyway, I said it already. It's filled to the brim with this legalistic mentality where there's all these rules and you follow all these rules. What's that get you? That doesn't get you anything. It doesn't make you more holy because you have a thing that you touch to an old dead person's bones to make it a third-class relic. Like, who? It's okay. So what? You know? Can't you just read the Holy Bible, see what Jesus did, try and emulate him?
Well, I saw someone the other day trying to claim that the priesthood and all these things set up were quite biblical. And I was just thinking, so immediately after Jesus died, Christians were persecuted by the Jews, persecuted by the Romans, and they were holding church in people's homes, you know? And they didn't have pastors, you know? So, I don't know. In some ways, I think that the way we hold church now is not necessarily biblical in a literal sense.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But, that's not to say I think that we shouldn't do church in any way the way we are. I certainly don't want to do church the way that, Crossroads. Was it Crossroads?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a problem with an awful lot of things that millennial church tries to do.
Yeah, that drives me crazy. Okay.
We're going to do something a little awkward today.
Yeah, today we're going to do something a little weird. And everyone in the crowd is like, oh.
We're going to hold hands and sing hallelujah.
I'm pretty sure we just heard you say that last Sunday. We're going to do something a little weird. Can't we do something not weird for once?
But I feel like
not awkward?
That, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I didn't go there very long when we first met. And I know you hadn't been going there.
No.
But you were friends with people who did. So that's kind of how we ended up there a little bit. I feel like that is created and attended by people who did grow up in a church versus this wave of staunch Catholicism.
Well, we may need to pause.
Hold on, I just switched sides here. This wave of staunch Catholicism. My wife is, going to bathe my feet and being barefoot in the kitchen pumping out babies, which I hate when other people say it. I hate it when people who, don't believe in traditional marriage, Christianity, or raising children say that. But there are legitimately some young people who did not grow up in Christianity saying stuff like that in kind of a icky way.
Yeah, it's kind of arrogant.
It is. And I'm thinking, well, when you find marriage and a family, if you don't change things a little bit, it's going to be really uncomfortable really soon.
Yeah, the only reason, and I'm sure you agree, the only reason we say that, one, because it's funny to see people's shock when you say that I like my wife barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. It's just hilarious to see people react to that. But also, the Bible's got pretty clear laid out roles for men and women, and they make sense when you look at men and women as a whole. Like, men are stronger. Mm-hmm. They're kind of designed by God to do certain things. They have a certain mentality. Of course, it's a bell curve, but they have a certain mentality that I think makes them better leaders, and women better followers. It makes sense. Again, bell curves, so it doesn't apply to 100% of everyone, but...
Well, that's leading us in another direction.
Yeah,
but
that's a different topic.
I wanted to finish what I was saying first, is that I feel like that wave of young people in our generation are all people who didn't grow up in the church, but they want to find, faith or purpose of some sort, but they don't feel like they can do it the way that, Jesus laid out.
Yeah, they need the rules.
You can't do anything.
Yeah.
Just come to Jesus on your knees. They need to do something. They need without actually going to the Old Testament, because, Jews bad.
Right.
They need the symbolism, and they need the hard work, and they need the relics.
Right. It's true. The Catholicism provides something to do, which is a lot more than just being introspective and confronting your inner sinful self, which is really challenging. It's a really difficult thing to do, to say to yourself, I'm a sinful creature. I don't deserve this. It's only grace. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's a lot easier for you to memorize a bunch of catechisms, say your prayers according to your rosary beads, go through every single one. Then when you sin, you go to confession and you say it to a guy. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, those are all actionable things. It's easier, in a sense, to do those things than it is to like, meet with yourself and say that I basically don't deserve any of this, even though it's still provided. You know? Mm-hmm. One is harder than the other. And weirdly enough, the one that has you doing stuff is the easier one. This relic thing is down to like a fine science, as all things in Catholicism seems to be. They can just make sweeping declarations at the very tippy top, and then everyone else has to obey it. Catholicism is weird that way.
Well, what's funny is that, quite aside from the scandals surrounding priests and nuns,
yeah,
Catholicism seems to be more palatable to the average person.
Yeah.
Which has always been strange to me. But now, of course, people are somewhat being forced to confront the fact that, making a whole bunch of men and women swear to be celibate forever is probably not the best idea.
Yeah, that's super bad for people. That's a super bad thing to do.
And I know I've said this before. Do you think that comes from Saul?
Well, I think it comes from Jesus. I don't know. I haven't looked, so I'll express my ignorance here, but Jesus never married, therefore celibacy.
Paul.
No, Jesus.
No, Paul. I was saying Saul.
Oh. Yeah, that's true, because you can actually read in the Bible where he's like,
I think you guys should stay single.
Yeah, and he's also, you can read where he's said, he's like, no, I'm single, and I'm good with that, and I don't know what's up with these other guys, but when they marry, that's fine, I guess. Like, that's kind of the language, paraphrasing terribly, don't quote me there.
Yeah.
Look that up. But it kind of feels that way when you read it, where he's like, I think these people are odd because they like to, marry and intermingle. That's not me. But for them, good for them. He didn't understand it. He had the gift of singleness as so very, very few people in this world have. It's funny because they talk about the gift of singleness when you get into Christian circles. You have the gift of singleness. Paul had the gift of singleness. He didn't really understand these people who married and had children, but that made him such a great force, a tour de force for bringing the word of God to the people. Yeah, maybe, but I don't think that's like 1 out of 10 million. That's very, very few people in this world who actually are like that. Everyone else is out there to reproduce. That's what your job is.
Well, honestly, don't you think God probably just made him someone who just wanted to be on his own because of all the gnarly things he had to go through?
Yeah, I think quite possibly, God had a plan for that guy. Therefore, no wife and no children, because otherwise he'd have people to worry about when he was being shipwrecked, and being thrown in prison more than once, and all this crazy stuff that happened to him.
Didn't he die horribly too, as I recall?
Oh, certainly. They all
died horribly.
Yeah, they all died horribly, except for John the Revelator. He died of old age, didn't he?
I don't recall.
I don't recall how they all died, but Stephen was stoned. He's the first one to die. And one of them was crucified upside down. Like, literally worse than Jesus himself. He was crucified upside down. It's terrible. Anyway.
Okay, I might be wrong. This might just be misremembering, but I thought he wanted to be crucified upside down because he wasn't
worthy.
Because he didn't believe he should be crucified the same way as Christ.
You might be right. Clearly, we're expressing our ignorance for not knowing for sure, but still, I think you're right.
I used to know a lot more when I was in school, and I listened a lot better. And it's been years and years, and I feel like knowledge has just kind of been falling out of my brain.
Yeah, I'm okay with telling the people out there listening that I don't know this very well, but I did research relics, which is going to bring us back to where I want to head. So
take most everything we say with a grain of salt, but he did research.
Yeah,
the point of the podcast.
I read a bunch of this stuff. So apparently, allegedly, obviously, it happened. So I'm not sure what word to use there. The Second Council of Nicaea decreed that all altars in the Catholic Church should contain a relic. So I wouldn't know because I've been there once and I didn't talk to people about relics, but I would assume that the altar at the Catholic Church down in town here has a relic in it, an actual fragment of someone's body who had died and been declared a saint. Because all Catholic altars in their churches have to contain a relic. They're built on top of relics. They seal it in with concrete.
That's really creepy.
Isn't that weird? There's a piece of a dead person in the altar down at the Catholic Church in town.
How do you know it's not just a tissue that a former bishop or
like a third class relic?
Or one of the popes blew their nose with.
Or a second class, rather. I'm not sure which one is required, actually. That's a good point. Either way, they're all built with relics, and I believe that the altar in St. Peter's Square is supposed to contain St. Peter's bones.
Huh.
Like in the Vatican. Like the big one. The fancy one. And they all know. Like, go ask them. They'll all know whose relic is there. It's a big deal to them. Just weird. This whole thing is weird. I find it fascinating and strange. That's why I want to do a podcast on it. So the apologists, the Catholic apologists, will say that you venerate these relics, and veneration is akin to keeping something that your loved one had. So it's a lot like keeping your loved one's ashes on the mantle. Now, I personally find that weird. We never had a dead person in our house. We didn't keep grandma's ashes. You know what I mean? We don't have anything of grandma's. We might have something that belonged to her, but we don't look at it and think fondly of grandma. You know what I mean? I can understand people doing that, but I personally think it's weird keeping someone's dead bones on their, dust on your mantle. That's a weird thing to do, personally, in my mind. But I know a lot of people do it, and I kind of understand the inclination. So,
pretty sure everyone in my family who's been cremated has been
scattered
to the waters,
the four winds. So I understand if that's the apologetic. I understand, right? But the problem I have with it is that these aren't people you knew. 9 times out of 10, I don't know the Pope personally. I could care less about his bones. It's just a dude I don't know, a sinful man I don't know. Why would I place any veneration or honor on a random dude I've never met and had never known in real life? I don't care. He's not special to me.
Well, that kind of brings to mind a different point entirely, though, about putting so much faith and trust into people that you don't know, have never met, and never will.
Yeah, that dude, it doesn't matter if this church declared him a saint. He could be the most horrible person you've ever met. You know what I mean? He could do some really foul, horrible, evil things in his life, and you would never know, because he died, and he died in Slovakia or whatever. He was a random Catholic dude in some foreign country. I don't know why I chose Slovakia. Yeah. Something totally foreign, and the Catholic Church, the bishops, and this hierarchy that they have declared him a saint. Suddenly his bones are venerated by Catholics the entire world over. He could be this super evil dude. He could have completely gone to hell. He could have ruined millions of people, hundreds of people's lives, not millions, hundreds of people's lives during his life, and you would never know because it was kept secret. You know what I mean? You don't know.
Aren't there rumors that Mother Teresa was involved in human trafficking?
Yeah, there are certain allegations.
Excuse our cats.
Are freaking out.
They're fighting over their chair. I gave them catnip a while ago, so they're a little wired.
Darn animals. That's enough. I have to edit that out. So yeah, because men are sinful. B, you never know men. You don't know people that closely. The church is definitely not going to know people that well. You know what I mean?
You should say mankind.
Mankind. Yeah, that's what I mean. Guaranteed, my church doesn't know anything about me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All you know is what the people present, and people can lie to you by presenting.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we've been in that... Yeah, I think we've talked about this before. People, at every church we've gone to, since having children, oh, you can put your kids in nursery, you can send them to children's church. I don't know you people. I know that we should be getting to know these people better, and we certainly are going there, but not well enough to leave my kids with anybody.
Yeah, exactly. So, did your game just crash?
My game
Your video game just crashed?
I've been following this stupid thing for 2 hours. I've shot it in the butt twice, and my game just crashed.
Alright, well, that's fine, because I have a Bible verse to read. Are you gonna cry?
A little bit.
Don't cry. The apologists also present a very specific verse. Are you seriously gonna cry?
No. I'm
good.
Trying not to laugh.
It's a dumb thing to cry over. They always give out this very specific verse for creating relics out of the second class relics, right? Like the robe that such and such a saint wore, right? This is 2 Kings 13 verse 20 until verse 20 through 21. It says, Elisha died and was buried. Moabite raiding parties invaded the land at the beginning of the year. This is a NET Bible, the Net Bible, so take that as you will. 21. One day, some men were burying a man when they spotted a raiding party, so they threw the dead man into Elisha's tomb. When the body touched Elisha's bones, the dead man came to life and stood on his feet. So, that's weird, right? And I've never looked at this passage, I'll admit. I'm sure it has a point, but I don't know what the point is. But that's no reason to venerate a bunch of dead people's bones, Mm-hmm. Clearly there's a reason, and it's probably in there. I guarantee you it's in there. If you study closely enough, you'll find a reason as to why it's in there. But using that as a reasoning for venerating some dead guy's bones and touching things to them to make sure that other things have power, what a strange thing. And there's instances of all kinds of miracles happening around relics, right? And I was going to look a bunch of them up, but maybe that's episode 2. There's some really strange instances. I don't really want to attempt to recount them because I didn't research them closely enough to really have memorized what happened. But there's a bunch of strange things that have happened around the bones of dead saints, right? Specifically, I guess I'll recount one that I vaguely remember. Maybe we'll do episode 2. And we'll have like a list of crazy things that have happened around venerated saints' bones. But one specifically is like a vial of blood that is dry. Mm-hmm. Right? And certain times of like the year or decade, at certain times it will liquefy. And they can predict this. And when it doesn't liquefy, it signifies something bad that's going to happen. Isn't that weird? I'm not going to say the name or anything because I don't remember rightly and I don't want to screw it up, but it is a thing. Look it up. There's this vial of blood that is a relic of some saint. It's some guy's blood that has been dead a long time, and at certain times of the year it will liquefy. They can watch it happen apparently, and it's on a specific day every year, and when it doesn't liquefy, these portentous things happen. To me, that sounds like...
demon.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like some evil spirit manipulating Catholics. We'll just say it. It's manipulating Catholics into thinking things that are not of the Bible.
Well, I think we're going to have to, for the other episode, because we've looked into it before, but it's been a while, so don't want to misspeak, but isn't there a, quote, miracle of people smelling the certain flower?
Yeah.
And,
that would be...
Fatima thing?
Yeah, that would, I don't know if that has to do with a specific relic, but that would fall in line with...
I don't think it was a relic, it was just people would smell this flower.
Right, but why and when?
I thought it was like when they were praying or...
Yeah.
I don't know.
It just seems like this whole thing, this whole relic thing, I guess, unless you have other topics, we can start wrapping up.
No, I don't think so, unless we wanted to touch on some current events.
Well, you'd have to tell me, because my brain's not on that right now.
Well, conservatives are at war with each other because of things like Turning Point USA, America First.
Yeah.
Some libertarians and, quote, conservatives are trying to justify the existence of porn.
Oh, I know. That whole porn thing is so stupid. Like, are you kidding me? Are you that dumb? Maybe we shouldn't touch on those, though. We'll do a current events thing later. I think this is a pretty good place to wrap it up. This is a topic-specific podcast, which is weird because we don't do this very often. We haven't done one in a while.
Yeah. Well.
And I'm feeling very talkative, so I just carried the whole thing without you. Sorry.
Well, I didn't research it.
That's true.
I didn't have the notes, so...
Yeah, but I think we should, together, do another episode on relics, or even just weird things. Like miraculous, in big air quotes, things that happen around the Catholic Church. Now, I'm not saying those aren't actual miracles, but oftentimes they certainly don't seem like real miracles. You know what I mean? They seem like there's a demon hiding somewhere in there, and he is so happy that he's deceived all those people into believing that it was God and not Satan that caused the blood to liquefy on a special day or whatever.
Well, it seems to me that the only modern day miracles that people should take seriously are, when people are healed. I'm not talking about the laying on of hands and knocking you over with the Holy Spirit on stage. I'm talking about, hey, so-and-so has cancer as a church, let's all pray, and then you find out, oh, yeah, their test results came back clean, which has happened to people that we know.
Yeah.
I believe in that sort of miracle nowadays, but that's completely different than, going up and sniffing, somebody's desiccated bones. Which I know we sound so mean, but the fact is just that
it's a strange chunk of Catholicism. Now I know there's a ton of Catholics out there who probably don't partake in this particular part of Catholicism at all, but since it seems like it's encouraged and actually, well, it's encouraged. That's the only word I have for it. By the papacy. The ruling body of the entire Catholic religion. And I say that on purpose because I find it completely distinct from my religion, which has to do with Jesus, not this guy who wears a dumb hat in Rome. You know what I mean? It has nothing to do with that guy. Who cares about that guy? I have Jesus,
Yeah.
I don't care about that guy. I don't necessarily care about my pastor. He's a nice guy. I do care about him. But you get my meaning. He's not important to me in the light of Jesus. He's got great insight. He's studied the Bible more than me, and I appreciate that. But he doesn't make rules for me. I read the Bible. That's where my rules for life come from. So, anyway... I guess I kind of lost the thread of where I was going there.
Well, yeah, you kind of got me off what I was gonna say too. No, my feeling is that it seems like with Catholicism in general, anybody can claim to be Catholic. They just have to, go and confess every now and then, and maybe attend on Easter and on Christmas. And a lot of people do that with Protestantism too.
They do. It's true.
So, I know that just, I guess, is with any religion. People claim to be a Muslim, but they don't wear the headscarf, and they don't raise their ass in the air 5 times a day. But
I don't know why anybody would associate with that one in particular anyway.
Well, yeah. But it's very easy to be mean to religions that put so much emphasis on, I'm personally doing this thing so I can go to heaven. Like, I don't know much about Mormonism, but they seem to raise nice young men who are good at talking to people, but I think we talked about this recently. You told me that they believe that only so many people can make it to heaven.
Yeah, it's the 144,000. They say that. Now, I may be conflating this with Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah, I think you are too.
Yeah, it's very often that I get those confused.
Yeah, I think you're not thinking of Mormonism. You're thinking of Jehovah's Witnesses. They believe that the 144,000 saints mentioned in the Bible, yes, it's a number that's mentioned in the Bible in Revelation. Mm-hmm. They believe those are the only people who will actually make it in heaven. Everyone else gets to be their servants.
Okay, now, but isn't there one that believes you can be the god of your own planet?
That's Mormonism.
Okay, that's
an actual doctrine in Mormonism. It's pretty wild. Most people don't believe that when you tell them that, because they couch it in this beautiful Christianity thing, family-oriented Christianity thing. But they also believe that Jesus was the spirit brother of Satan. Are you kidding me? No, Jesus is God. I'm sorry, but Jesus is God. He has nothing to do with Satan, except that Satan was his servant. He was just an angel that did what he was told until he didn't. Then he became Satan. It's that simple.
Yeah. So, I have a hard time with people like that, and it makes me especially angry to see this movement of young people who, I'm going to go and I'm going to be a Catholic because Catholicism is the only way to go because it's the most correctest, don't you know?
Most correctest.
And like I said, I think that's a reaction to being raised with atheism and evolutionism and do what thou wilt.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And it is strange how young people seem to be attracted to this mental attitude towards religion where you do something. Maybe it's just a relic. It's funny how that's in my language. It's just an artifact of being raised in the world, where things happen after you do them. You know what I mean? You affect your own reality. Which is true, but you also end up going to hell because you've affected your own reality instead of giving your life to the Creator, which is Jesus. You can do what you want at your own detriment. It's kind of a scary thing to do, go doing what you want to do instead of doing what Jesus wants you to do. Good luck.
And again, my problem with libertarians.
Yeah, libertarians. Well, we'll talk about libertarians later. Maybe we'll
talked about libertarians a number of times.
We have. We won't go there. So one last thing to touch on with relics before we end, because I know we're kind of rambling here. We don't want to do that.
There it is.
Oh no, the bear! Shoot it in the butt. Oh man, you shot that bear right in the back.
Well, hopefully I got its spine. This stupid thing.
It's a hunting simulator. It's funny. One last thing I wanted to touch on was fraud and money. So there's this giant economy surrounding relics. People basically will. So
Look at that blood splatter.
Man, you did. You're probably going to get that bear. So I guess the Catholic, according to Wikipedia, which ain't a right source, but I always end up on it. Sorry. The Catholic Church has banned the sale of first and I think second class relics. Like you're not allowed to, according to them, and they have their military arm that they don't talk about, the Jesuits. But apparently, they have banned the sale and trade of first and second class relics, but third class relics are still allowed to be sold, right? So there's this whole economy around relics, and tourist shops have like sprung up around shrines that contain the bones of the saints, because people make pilgrimages. Man, that word is hard for me to say. With their rosaries, so they can touch it to the shrine and make it a third-class relic. There's this whole economy built around it. And what does the Bible say about money? It's the root of all evil, right? The love of money is the root of all evil. So if you can make a ton of money off this thing and are using it, you've made rules in the Catholic Church about the saints and how their bones are relics, and people are all in this fervor where they get to touch their rosary to the thing and make it a third-class relic and venerate that saint from then on and basically worship the dead. I'm sorry, but that's the way it seems. And while you're there, you bought yourself a little touristy thing because there's a shop next door that's owned by the diocese nearby. You know, something about that seems really wrong, according to that verse that talks about the root of all evil is the love of money. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, and there's people who have, it must be people who have created relics, in big air quotes. They've basically defrauded the whole system. Oh, look at this old chunk of wood I have in a glass case. That's part of the true cross. I'll sell it to you for $100,000. A piece of the wood that God hung on. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Jesus hung on this wood. Give me $100,000. It's so weird. Like, the whole thing seems wrong. It just shouldn't be. How do you get away from that? Don't care. You just don't care about a piece of cloth that some dude wore when he was alive. Who cares how holy, in air quotes, he was? He was a sinful man. It doesn't matter. There you go. I just blew away a whole chunk of Catholic theology.
Anyway.
Okay. I'm done rambling. I'm done with my soliloquies. I think it's time to wrap it up. Find us on Twitter at the Hinterlands feed. Right? Mm-hmm. It's been so long since I looked at it. I'm going to look it up right now so I don't get it wrong. It is at Hinterlands feed. That's our Twitter. Find us on Twitter. That's our primary mode of communication. And no one's communicated with us, so it doesn't matter. You can email us at thehinterlandsmedia@gmail.com. That's the other one. If you really feel like it, it does exist. It will work. And that's it. Just those two things. All right? Mm-hmm. You can find us on YouTube. We have some views on there, oddly enough, which is cool. Just look up Hinterlands Media. It should come up.
Yeah, I do listen to podcasts on YouTube, so other people must as well.
Yeah, YouTube's a great way to listen to podcasts. We'd appreciate the views, even though you're not watching, you're listening, because there's no video on there. It's just audio. Yeah, connect with us. Email us. Talk to us. Tell us we're wrong about Catholicism. And I'll read it and say, okay, thank you for the feedback. Loyal listener. While I grip my teeth. That's it. Thanks very much for listening. I'm going to say goodbye.
Yep, bye.
Bye.